Good morning, everyone. We'll get started. If you could please mute yourselves in the meantime, that would be greatly appreciated. On behalf of CAVAL and Index Data, we acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional custodians of the lands which I'm coming from today. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander and other First Nations peoples today. If you'd like to also acknowledge where you are coming from, please do feel free to do so in the chat. Welcome to episode 4 of the FOLIO series. Today we'll be speaking to you about acquisitions and ERM, and Corrie will be taking us through. But if you do have any questions, please do feel free to send them through to caval@caval.edu.au, and we'll also be able to provide you with a link to all the recordings so far and this one as well once the recording is available. What I might do now is hand over to Corrie, and away you go.
Thank you, Sarah. I am mostly going to spend the session today kind of just demonstrating how to place orders and how to use the ERM functionality. So I'm going to share my screen real quick after I hit some key buttons. Oh, actually not that button. Okay. One moment, my apologies. Okay, hopefully we can see my screen. Excellent. So I'm going to walk you through this evening because acquisitions in ERM are my strengths in Folio. I have a background in acquisitions and tech services, and I'm mostly going to discuss just a little conceptually and then walk through it. And Tara, my colleague, is going to watch the chat. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat or interrupt and ask. This is very informal, and I want you to get as much out of this as possible, so this is definitely geared for you. I also want to comment that this is the 4th session out of 4 that we've done so far. If you would like to see recordings of the first 3, I know you can email Sarah at CAVAL, and she can get those to you as well. And then, of course, today's is going to be recorded and will be available later. So we'll just start off with acquisitions and ERM. Acquisitions, as with all of Folio, is a suite of apps that support the acquisitions workflow, the purchase, receipt, and payment of resources. And I wrote regardless of format or order type because the same apps and the same workflow is used for physical resources as well as e-resources when it comes to the acquisitions piece, and the same with order type. So there's a way to designate your one-time or firm order purchases separately than your ongoing recurring subscription type of purchases. And the apps that we're going to look through today are the finance app, organizations. Organizations is really the broad term for any third-party entity that you do business with. I will call them vendors because I always call them vendors, but that's organization records. We're going to do orders. We're going to look in the receiving app, and then we're going to do invoices. We're not going to cover today the serials app because it's not out yet, but it's coming out in Quiznalia, phase 1 of that project. And that is about managing serials, and phase 1 is the predictive patterning. So currently Folio does not do predictive patterning for you to be able to say that this is a 12 times a year monthly that starts on January 1st. And I want to create pieces for receiving, which we'll see later. And you're going to, set this record up so that they're automatically created and they have the right receipt date and all that. So that is coming in the future, and we're not going to cover that today. But I did want to put it out there because I'm excited about it, and I know a lot of people are, because the serials functionality is very young in Folio, but it is also a developing area. So with that, I'm going to go to our Folio environment for this is our index data folio environment. And so I've done a lot of setup in here, and we're gonna start here, and then we're gonna flip over to the snapshot to show one piece, but everything else I want to show is in our test environment here in index data. So as we've discussed before, what the app is that you're in is always labeled in the far left top corner. There are varying apps across the top, and if you don't see them, hit the apps and you can scroll down. I'm a big fan also of separate tabs, and I'll have several open as we go through. And I am logged in as the administrator, so I have crazy powers to do whatever I want in this environment. And as we go through this process, because we're looking at it from a workflow perspective, we're going to be bouncing around apps a lot. So I will try to point out which app we're in as we go, but Folio isn't sticky in a way. So we're going to start in the orders app, but I'm going to click some buttons and end up in finance app. But when I go back to orders app, it'll be there. You'll see it. So we're going to bounce around a little bit today. I see things popping up in chat, Tara. Anything I need to pay attention to?
No, just letting people know where they can ask questions and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to start out, first of all, in the orders app. And today we're going to order, actually, I'm not going to start in the orders app. I was wrong. My apologies. The first thing we're going to do is order a book. And order a book is the most simple way. And usually when you start out ordering a book, you bring in your bibliographic record and then you want to attach your order to it. And Folio is no different. So the first thing I want to do is actually start an inventory. Now, you don't have to start an inventory. You can create a record without being connected to something in inventory, but commonly you will. So that's where I'm going to go. And I want to look at, I'm going to see if this book I want to see if this OCLC book, here's the OCLC number of the book I'm looking at. It's not in this instance. So I'm going to go to actions. I'm going to import a bibliographic record from Library of Congress. And this I'm just doing also to, oh no, it's not Library of Congress, it's WorldCat, my apology. That's why it failed. This is what I get for having computer troubles right before we started. It's throwing me off my game. So this is my OCLC number. I'm going to bring this record in. And now I have inventory for this record. And you can see that it's been created. And so this is the best mystery stories of the year 2023. I like mysteries, so we went ahead and brought it in. I like short stories. And in inventory from here, you can start creating an order. And so what it does is it starts to build that bridge, because everything about the acquisitions is building bridges. So I go to actions, and I'm just going to go to, let's create a new order. And I don't have a PO number, but if you had a PO number, you could. I'll explain that in a second. But everything in Folio, when you do orders, there's a purchase order, and then there's purchase order lines. The purchase order, all the purchase order does is basically say that I have an order with this vendor, and it's this type of order. So it's either a one-time order or ongoing. So it's basically a firm order or subscriptions, right? So this one is going to be a one-time order. And I'm going to say that this order is with Amazon. And I've created this organization already. We're going to look at it here in a little bit. So I'm going to pick my Amazon vendor, and I'm going to leave the rest of this blank, but you can add prefixes, suffixes to your PO number. You can assign acquisitions units. This is how you differentiate finances between libraries. So everything in Folio, when you're in a shared tenant, a shared environment, is shared, such as circ rules and policies and so forth. Everybody can see everything except for financial data. Acquisition units, when you assign an order, an invoice, finances, anything to an acquisitions unit, then only people with privileges to see that unit, edit that data, see within that unit, edit that data, have the permission to do so. So I have one set up, aptly named after myself, because why not? And you can set assigned, you can assign this account to someone. I can say, I want to assign this order to Tara, and I want Tara to fill out this order. And you can say, I want to bill to a certain address. I want to ship to an address. I want to, these two buttons do with fiscal year rollover, and then it will have created data. And then it has no total summary yet, but I'm going to save this PO in pending status. And that's all there is to a PO. The PO is like the receipt, right? That I bought from the store. It tells you that I have an order, and that's all it does. All the purchase order does is tell you that you have an order. And then I want to add a PO line. And so this one, because I came out of inventory, it already knows the item details of what I want to order because I told it in inventory. And so it pre-populates your title information. And right here is a button that's telling you I am connected to a record in inventory. And so what this does then is in inventory, you'll be able to see this order information. You can click through it and go see the order, and also from the order, then when I'm in the orders app, I can click through to the inventory and see exactly what I purchased. So I'm going to scroll down because I need to make sure everywhere is filled out that has a little asterisk, and wherever I think is also important. So the title is filled out. All these contributors are filled out because, of course, I picked a short stories book collection. So it has a ton of titled authors. And then we're going to get to the PO line details. So this is the details of how am I going to purchase this? You know, I'm saying, this is where you say approval plan, DDA, EBA. Was this free or a gift? And this one, I'm going to say I purchased it the vendor system because I went online and I bought it. So I'm not going to send this order through Folio to Amazon. I already bought this. And this is a physical resource. This is important, and this determines actually this last accordion here, where you can add some resource details. So if I picked electronic, it would say electronic resources. You can say receipt status. You can say it will default to pending, but you can also say it's not required. You can say the same for payment. Like maybe this is an order where payment's not required. Requester, selector, donor information. If this is rush, this will pop up and it will point as rush. But I got none of those things. I don't want it to be a rush. And then here's the button that's kind of important. This is the receiving workflow. This is, if it's synchronized, then however many pieces I order is how many pieces it's going to expect to be received. If it's independent, then I may receive more or less I may receive generally more pieces than I receive. So this is what you would use for ongoing orders where you order one journal, but you receive four issues, right? So for serials, you would pick something different, but I'm going to pick synchronized. This one has an account. I'm going to say this goes on the business account. And this book costs, I actually looked it up. It was $14.60. And I bought one of them. And this is where you can, exchange rates. I've set default folio to USD, but it does do about every currency I know of. And you can default to other currencies as well. So you could default to any dollar value could be your default, or if not, then you can also set exchange rates. You can set discounts. You can say, oh yeah, this one comes with an additional, sales charge or whatever. And then I have to tell it what fund to pay, what fund to charge. And I'm going to put this in my popular books account in the Hutchinson library. I was feeling very selfish the day I set all this up. So what this is saying is that I'm going to charge this fund, and I'm going to charge it to the print account expense class. I'll show those in a minute. And I'm going to charge the full amount. You could charge, say, I want to do a 50-50. You could do 50 here and then add a second fund. You can split fund as many funds as you like for any of these purchase order lines. Because since the PO is just the order, the PO line is where you define it, and that's where you define it for that piece. But I'm going to do 100. And yeah, Like you need to have 100, Corrie. There we go. And then I have to say where this is going to live. And I'm going to create a new holding. And I'm going to put it on the first. No. I'm going to put it in the reading room. So this is how you say, and this also you have to put the quantity so that if you maybe you order 3 books and you want one to go in 3 different locations, you can add 3 different locations. But I only ordered 1. I want it to go in the reading room when it's received. This is a book. And then I want this to create inventory. So what I'm telling here is when I order this item, I want you to make sure that there's an instance there, create a holdings record with this location, and then also create an item record. And this you would want to do if your library allows patrons to put requests on order pieces. You need an item record for them to place that request. So my library does that. I'm going to make sure that I have items that will say, hey, we've got this piece on order, and I'm going to save and close. So now I have my purchase order. I'm in the orders app because I've completely left the inventory app. And here's just the basics of the purchase order. It's with Amazon. It's a one-time order. Here's the acquisitions unit. And then here's the POL. Here's some product IDs. I didn't have a vendor reference number, but you could add one. Here's the fund and here's the price. And it's still pending. So that means that I've not encumbered any funding. I have only entered this, but as far as the system is concerned, I haven't actually ordered this. So I'm going to go up to actions and I'm going to open the order. I'm going to submit it. And as long as I have money in an active organization, yay, which I do, notice it says it now has been opened. So now my workflow status is open, which means I have opened this order with the vendor, I have placed this order, and I have committed funding to pay for it. Okay, I keep seeing the chat pop up. Tara, do we have questions? Because I'm going through this really fast.
We do, and it is so comprehensively fast. Beautifully
Yes.
fast. So the question in chat that we were hoping we could take a step back to is an acquisitions unit like a fund? And I said, it's not quite like a fund. It's more like adding a permission set. So can we go over that a little bit? And then we have another one after that.
Yes. So an acquisitions unit, I'm going to go to the settings app. So an acquisitions unit, so this is, I'm in the settings app now, and this is essentially your configuration app. And here's where you assign acquisitions units. And so I created one for the Hutchinson library. And what I have done then is say that only members of this unit can view, edit, create, or delete financial records and transactions related to this unit. So because I gave this order the Hutchinson library acquisitions unit designation, the only person who I've assigned to this unit is Index Data Administrator. No one else will even know these orders exist. They won't be able to see these funds. They won't be able to create anything. So they can't impact any financial transactions or units that have to do with Hutchinson Library. Your funds are just, I was going to get to those in a minute, but funds are kind of your buckets of funding and they're separate. So, but funds can be designated with an acquisitions unit. Does that make sense? I hope. I'm going to show funds here in a minute.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, Adam, if you still have questions, just let us know in chat. The second question on here is regarding expected delivery date, which is at the end of order details. Does this allow users to set reminders or alerts so that if an item is not delivered by its expected date, they can follow up? And then we clarified alerts within the system rather than having to create an Outlook reminder, for example.
Yes, you are 100% right. So you would do, like, for example, let me show. So let's say I didn't fill it out, but I can. let's say I expected it actually to come yesterday. What month is it? It's the 5th. So what this does then is now this purchase order has an expected date and it has pieces associated with it. So when I receive it, you can actually, I'm going to get to that actually in a minute, but then when I go to receiving, there's a way to filter, and I can filter for things that maybe are past their due date, and then you can do a query. It's actually one of mine I was going to show later here in a minute, but you're right, and I will demonstrate in a minute. Okay.
Awesome. So we have one more question that popped up while you were talking, and
Yes.
it's, can you create order templates so all of the entries are pre-populated when you create an order? I said yes. Would you like to elaborate?
Yes, you guys ask the best questions. It's in the settings. There's an orders, and there is an order template. Now, it considers an order template. So I didn't use one, but there is actually one for Amazon print books that somebody, probably Tarek, created. But you can basically configure any kind of information within the PO or the PO line detail, so that if you use this template, some of these more standard, what you could call constant data for this order could be applied, such as the acquisitions method, order format, synchronized workflow, and so forth. But you have to use the order template from the very beginning when you create the PO. You can't create the PO with Amazon and then try to use the order template. You have to start at the PO and then create it. But yeah, you can totally do it. You can even all the way down to the fund and location. So I just didn't do so for this demonstration, but you can, and you can create new ones to your heart's content and name them however you choose. Good questions.
Awesome.
Okay.
I love this feature. So that's all the questions in chat right now.
Okay, I did want to show, so that we can place a purchase order successfully, there are 2 apps that you have to fill out basically. And one, you have to have a vendor for Amazon. So I had to create this vendor. So if I click on the vendor here, it takes me to, now I'm at the organizations, and I'm looking organizations app, and I'm looking at the Amazon vendor record. So I'm looking at the organization record, and this right here is the button, the click button that makes it happen. I have designated this as a vendor, which is, you must designate organization records with which you plan to charge orders against or with as a vendor. So at minimum, I had to have a name and a code, and I did vendor. But your organization record allows you to store contact information, contact people. You can store information about their web interface, as well as vendor terms. You know, for example, I have here like 30 days net. Maybe they have shipping, like here, we wrote a note that it's free as long as we spend over 10,000. And then you can also set up separate accounts. So this is where we set up, oh, we have a corporate account and we have a business account. But the corporate accounts, you know, this one's inactive. We don't use it anymore. And so even with orders, you can, within that POL, you'll notice I had to choose which account. So there, but not all of this has to be filled out, but you can. And so that it then can populate invoices, orders, and so forth with data from the organization record. You can also add an integration that will send orders in Edifact format for that vendor to an FTP site, and you can also retrieve invoices from a vendor in Edifact format from that site. So there's a lot of, so again, organization, everything about that organization is going to be stored there, and then the orders and the invoices are just going to steal from it to populate certain fields or be connected to it so you can go to the app and take a look. The other thing you had to do to make it work is I had to say that I had the money to pay for it. So you have to set up your finance app. And I'm going to just go straight to the finance app. If I look at the POL, except for now you can't, you can see down here in fund distribution, these are now hyperlinked. So I could just go straight to this fund distribution, and now and this got a new tab, and I'm in the finance app, and here's my fund. my Hutchinson Library Popular Book Fund. And here is my current budget. Here's where I have current expense classes. I'm gonna explain those in a minute. But you can also have planned budgets, and I can have previous fiscal year budgets if I do roll over. But if I want to look at my current budget, and I click here, here's your summary of your allocation, and here's your summary of transactions, how much you've encumbered, how much that is waiting to be paid. This means I have invoices open that have not yet been paid for $62.92. Once I pay them, they'll move to expended. And so therefore I have $527 unavailable out of my 10,000. So here's my cash balance, my available balance, and then here's basic information. You can set limits on how much of this fund is allowed to be expended. I'm only allowed to expend 100% of it. It won't let you pay an invoice that takes you over the 100%, and it won't let you encumber for over 100%. And then I've also created expense classes, which is how you can further designate expenses within that fund. You can say, for example, I have electronic and print. These come with the system, but I consider this more like non-capital capital, right? Or if you want to designate one versus the other because you need to know when you spend popular books, how many print books did I spend out of this and how many ebooks did I buy? You can use expense classes to help you further designate your charges within that. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to keep rolling unless we have questions. Okay, so your finance app consists of a bunch of funds that belong to a ledger. And your ledger is where you group those funds and you bring it all together. So in this instance, I have a ledger, and these are all funds that have the same fiscal year rollover practice. And that's a whole other complete 60-minute discussion probably on fiscal year rollover. But for now, think of it as these are your books, right? So every year you get your funding and you open a ledger, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to take all that funding and I'm going to allocate it out into these funds. I've only created a few, but here is my overall big picture. This is how much money I have, and this is how it looks in my activity and overages. And then here it is broken down into your funds. And you can go to any of these funds just by clicking what the arrow means. So if I wanted to look at humanities, I can just go to humanities and look at it. But your ledger is kind of like, I feel like that's your old school books. And you have to have an active one with a current fiscal year. And so notice here we have active, and then my fiscal year designates what fiscal year is, and I've set that here in this part of the finance app, and I have Hutchinson fiscal year. And actually all of these pieces too, I have given this an acquisitions unit. So anyone that's not me won't even know that this fiscal year exists. They won't even see that ledger, and they won't see any of my funds because they don't have privilege to do so. Okay, so we've placed an order. I'm going to copy the POL for real quick. So the next step is I've placed the order. It is open with the vendor. So now we need to receive it. So I'm going to go to the receiving app, and I'm going to look for the POL. No, not package. The POL number, just because I happen to have it. You can search by the title of the piece that you're receiving, or you can do a keyword search. You can also do product ID. This would be for like your ISBN. So you could scan the ISBN as long as that ISBN is in the POL. And I'm going to search for it. And so it knows I've placed one order. I told it I want to receive one piece, that I want to receive as many as I've placed. And here's that expected receipt date. But I also want to note too, that question, there's a facet here where you can say, I want to look for anything that didn't come or was supposed to come from here to here, and where is it? Maybe I want to look at physical. Oh, here it is, receiving status. I'm gonna look for expected pieces. So you can use all these different facets to look for open orders that have not been received, find your list, and then you can export that list to CSV, for example. So if you're doing claiming and you want to see all the serial pieces you haven't received, you can do some facets, export to CSV, open in Excel, Google Docs, and take it from there to work with your vendor on what pieces haven't been received. But to receive it, it's simple as clicking on it. And then here's my expected piece. It doesn't have any data, but it knows I need a piece. This is also where there'd be a receiving note. So if I'd added a receiving note, notice here's that rush button that I could have clicked. You could have a receiving note that says, give to Corrie because she wants to read it when it comes in. And you can even make it so that this pops up when you're doing your receipt. And then there are two ways to receive. You can click on it and this pops up. And this is where if this was a piece, if you wanted to add like this is copy 2, or if this was a journal issue, you might have some of these pieces. Maybe if you want to change where it's going to go, you can do that here. I want to display on holding. This is how you link it to the holdings record. So the holdings record will say that this piece has been received and you can click receive. Or you can go to actions, receive. And this allows you to add, this is where you can add a barcode and a call number. But I don't have any of those, so I'm going to receive it. And that's it. I see questions popping up.
You are all good. That was just
Yay!
making sure that we answered Sarah's question. And you did, so we're perfect.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm running way behind. But good questions. So I've ordered it, I've received it, now I have to pay for it. So now we go to Invoices app. And just like anything, there are filters that you can use to look for previously created invoices, but I'm gonna create a new one. Actions new. I'm gonna say today's date is that fiscal year. This is an open invoice, meaning this is not a already paid invoice. Batch group, I'm gonna say Hutchinson library. This is if you want to export your invoices in JSON or XML for integration with a third party, maybe campus enterprise or system-wide enterprise type of system. You can add like adjustments, and these are preset. So I could pick, it shows shipping, but you could say maybe you have a vendor that you always work with and you have to pay a fuel surcharge or something. You can set preset adjustments that you can then add just like a template. And I want to say this costs $2.99 to ship it because I have this as an adjustment at the invoice level. It's in addition to, I'm going to say, let's charge it by line, export to accounting. And then I need to tell it what the vendor is. This is my Amazon order. Because just like the PO, all this invoice is saying is this is an invoice. And so it's just the basic details. Who's my vendor? You know, what charges do I have at the invoice level? What's my invoice number? I'm going to say invoice 045. How am I going to pay this? I'm going to send a check. I don't need to check subscription overlaps because there's no serials. This is in dollars. And this is where you can also actually upload a PDF of your invoice. So in invoices, you can also have PDFs and other files of the actual invoice, or you can add a link if you have maybe a portal that you work with, like some vendors. And then I'm going to save it. So now I have an invoice, but I don't know what I bought. So this is just like PO lines. I need to add an invoice line. And you can, let's see if I still have the PO number saved. I do. I'm going to do POL number because maybe it's on the invoice. You could also do publisher, keyword, there's that product ID, there's that ISBN. And I'm going to choose this piece and I'm going to save. So now I have an invoice and I know what the invoice is for. So you can continue to add invoice lines. You can also add a blank line in case maybe you have a charge on the invoice that doesn't have an associated order. So this is something you might do if it's maybe this is how you would choose to do shipping instead of an adjustment. There's multiple ways to do things. But you can see here, here's my shipping at invoice level. Here's vendor details. Again, you can click through to the organization. And here's my total, 1759. And so once everything is ready and I've got it opened, then I click to approve it. And that's kind of, approve is like opening. This is telling the system, okay, I'm committing to pay this. And so now my pending payments will say that. And this fund will now say that I have this money promised and this invoice is open. So
We do have a question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's can you integrate with finance systems like Workday?
Yes.
Like can you directly integrate?
If you mean directly as in like, probably not. So what you can do is there is a functionality in the Export Manager app that allows you, if you set up your organization records correctly, to create a voucher batch export. So essentially it creates a JSON or XML file that contains information about an invoice that a third-party system would need to pay that invoice. But you can't configure how that JSON looks. You can't configure how that XML looks. So it's very unlikely that Workday is going to accept that as is. So usually a lot of libraries that use this, they have a middleware somewhere where they have a script that automatically maybe reformats it for upload into that system, or they do it manually, or because Folio is based on APIs, there are also libraries that, maybe if you can work with Workday, which does have APIs as well, maybe there's a way for Workday to read Folio directly. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. But directly, no, there's no Workday app. There's no direct integration with any third-party system except for EBSCO for eHoldings and the Z3950s. Okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of all file-based. There's no sort of like edge module that allows it to directly communicate via APIs that's been developed, but a library could develop that. Awesome.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Tara said it way better. Thank you.
Just shorter.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay, so that's ordering. And we only have 20 minutes, so I'm gonna go straight to the ERM aspect. So if you were doing ERM in Folio is really just the support of management of e-resources, but not necessarily the support of the purchasing, because that is assumed to be taken care of by the acquisitions piece. So anything that we could put in e-resource, you can connect to a PO and a POL, and then therefore that acquisitions piece is all handled through the apps that we've just discussed. So the ERM is really your licenses, your agreements, what I consider your contracts. I would consider like your order contracts is an agreement. There's the eHoldings app, the local KB admin, which are very similar. There's the eUsage app, ERM comparison app, and the dashboard app. The main app is really your agreements app. But I'm going to start in a foundational app, kind of like organizations and finance, and do a quick look at a licenses. So licenses app is exactly that. This is where you store the licenses. So these would be the licenses that you have with a vendor. So for example, the license you have with JSTOR for your terms and conditions. So this is your use license. This is where you put, and you can enter terms, and these categories are defined by you. So you can enter terms. Let's say I have a JSTOR license, and this is a local. You can actually do also a consortial type or national type. When does it start? And in this one, does it have an expiration date? No, this one is open-ended. And you can add terms here that says, oh, I want to define who an authorized user is. You read your license, and you add your values. You can say, is this visible to the public? This is for interfacing with discovery systems, though I'm not sure if that is yet functionality that's available. And an internal note. This one is saying alumni explicitly excluded. So you can store this license that defines how the terms and conditions of your use works. And I associate it with an organization record here. I say it's with JSTOR. They are the licensor. And so you can do all these, can I make print copies? And so this is very helpful for people who may interact with the license, but may not be responsible for signing the license or getting approval, because you can do things like, here's concurrent users, prints, electronic ILL, all of that. And there's also, you can, just like with the license, just like with an invoice, you can actually store a PDF of the license here, and you can add amendments to the license, and you can add you can actually, add the amendment here. Does it give any new terms, add the core document, and so forth. So, and then your license gets attached, your terms and conditions get attached to an agreement. An agreement is what you bought, for how long, and what license governs that agreement. So for example, I have a license for JSTOR content, and this one, it started at the same time, January of 2022. There is a current one. We're in the current year. This is the 1-year renewal for 2024. And what this says is, here's where it's licensed. So here's all that data that we pulled in, that's pulling in from the license that we've associated with this, because it's listed here under controlling license. But here's kind of the most important piece. Here's your agreement lines. So just like PO, just like invoices, here's the agreement. And what does the agreement govern? It governs these two pieces. I bought Arts and Sciences 1 and 2. And so as part of this agreement, these are included, and these are included. And here is a list of all of those resources that I bought as part of that. So this is how you can keep track of year to year. What did I buy? What title did I actually buy in that package? And how you get these titles is by integrating with the eHoldings app or the local KB admin app. And I'll get to that in a minute, but you can list all your titles here. And then also, this is where with this agreement, I could say, I want to look at this agreement line. Here's this agreement line. And I want to know where, oh, no. It's part of the agreement line is how you add a POL. So I want to view one of these agreement lines. My apologies. That's because I've already done it. So you can see here, there's POL lines. So I could click this link, and now I'm over in the orders app, and this is how you can follow the purchase of that and the payment and the invoice and so forth. Okay. So I have my agreement lines. You can also, just like with your pieces, you can do, okay, period ends. You can add cancellation deadlines, and then you can use the facets on the side to look for agreements that maybe, that start on a certain date. Maybe they end. Okay, what's my cancellation deadline? I want to look for everything, maybe three months out. And so you can do a facet search, and then likewise, kind of look at what you've got to work with, see what comes up, and then manage those as well. So that's kind of how you do there are alerts. To be able to, you can actually set up dashboards. This is the only suite of apps that work with the dashboard is the ERM. And this allows you to create widgets. So I can create a new widget. I can edit one, edit the dashboard or delete it, can create a new one. But we have a widget here that says, I want to look for upcoming cancellations, anything with a cancellation deadline 3 months from now or earlier that has not been renewed. And then you can see these are linked to that agreement. And then you can go into the agreement line. It takes you straight to that agreement that needs work. you can see this one says it's in negotiation and it's past the cancellation deadline. So you can then work on this from here. And once you renew it, it's no longer past deadline, the cancellation deadline is gone, then this will renew. And so this can kind of become your task list. But for now, it only works with ERM apps. So it only works with licenses, agreements. Actually, I think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
So before we move on, there's a question in chat. Someone was hoping to take a look at ERM comparison. I remember this is a little hard to demo. So do you want to show that or do you want to talk about it later?
I wasn't actually going to demo it because it can be a little hard to demo.
Yeah.
It can be hard to demo. One, two, also because I'm in the index data test site. I do want to flip over real quick to the Folio snapshot site. So the reason it's a little hard to demo is that how you get the data into an agreement about what you bought is you need to bring it in either by using the local KB admin, which is a way for you to create exactly what it says, a local knowledge base of e-resources. And you can bring these in by setting up jobs with open source tools like GoKB, or you can load KBAR files if you want to. And then what that does is that loads that list for you that you can then attach in the agreement. Or you use the eHoldings app, which connects only to the EBSCO knowledge base app. And we don't have it set up in our test site because we're not EBSCO, but in the development and the Folio snapshot site, you can. And this allows you to search their knowledge base from within Folio, select titles, and then add them to a basket or renew or kind of create them and let Folio know that you want to connect those to an agreement. And it's very slow, but you're searching their knowledge base now, and you can add custom packages, you can select titles, and then you can add them to agreements. And once they're agreements, you can add them with licenses, acquisitions, and so forth. So otherwise, in an agreement, it's all manual entry. And then once you have to have those packages and those titles in there for the ERM comparisons to work. So I don't know that we have any, well, there aren't any, and that's not surprising. But you can select agreement or select packages. So they have to be there and be populated for them to work.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Jen is asking if it's basically an overlap tool.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
But like all overlap tools
here.
It's only as good as the data in it and the misspellings and ISSNs and so forth. So
awesome. So maybe we can get a more it's actually not in documentation, I remember. So we can find a better explanation and pass that along, right? Yeah.
Yes. Let's add that to the list of questions, and I'll write up some more detailed notes on that one.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Okay. I did want to mention the e-usage app. This allows you to set up automated sushi polls or automated counter report, harvesting using sushi. And so, or you can load them manually. So you can create a new job, essentially a new usage data provider. And you can see here, you can choose that you want it to be a sushi poll, and you can set what type of report, which report, when to start harvesting and so forth. But you do have to have an account, obviously, with that vendor to be able to harvest those, and it will harvest the jobs. Or you can actually also upload counter reports manually. And then these can also be connected to the agreement. So the agreement piece, the agreement record is the key. It connects all the different pieces. So you can configure e-usage to pull or load. It doesn't do cost use analysis. It just loads the records. It doesn't do analysis of the records within Folio. I know that's like the obvious next step, but I want to be clear that that's not there, but it does store the data, and you can then kind of see it. We have some reports and you can start to do years and you can see what data type and you can look at CSV XLS. Okay. Ooh. Okay. I think I got through everything on ERM that I wanted to. I wanted to do some reporting, but we don't have a lot of time. I want to mention for the acquisitions functions though, there's a lot of what we call in-app reporting where you can use the facets, limit to the kind of list of records that you want, and then export those via CSV. Not a lot of the apps do that, but thankfully the acquisitions apps do. And then with all of our index data clients, we provide MetaDB, which is the read-only folio copy of all of your database, all your folio data, right? So, and you can query that directly with DBeaver or any third-party tool. And then there's also an app in Folio that allows you to directly access the tables in MetaDB. So you can build queries, you can run reports. This is connecting to a GitHub repository. Again, it's very long, but we have a lot of great ways to query your data. And you can use it for things. I've written reports for how to look for purchase orders that should be closed but aren't, or how do I find transactions that didn't process properly. I mean, I use MetaDB all the time to query what's going on in Folio for our clients, and then use that to make sure that the data is clean, everything's processing properly. You could even use that to do a receiving full, things like that. So just to throw that out there, that it is there, but I just didn't have time to get there. Phew. 5 minutes. Yay. I know.
I think you got
Any
everything
other-
in chat.
Yay.
Oh, nope, I was wrong. We've got another one. So what sort of reporting is available from the usage stats app? I think we mean e-usage.
Those would just be, you can only report out, or do you mean the reports? Okay, two things. One,
We mean e-usage.
okay. I was thinking more about in e-usage, you can look up by, the provider, the data provider, and you can download the reports yourself. So you can download the reports in CSV, for example. But there is also the logs that will show you when those reports or those automatic harvests fail, for example. So there's reporting on the reliability of the polls, whether there are any failures, and then you have to report, you would pull out the data usage, those apps, and then you would have to analyze those in a third-party tool.
So on that topic, regarding reporting from e-usage, can you download a consolidated report of usage across all vendors or only one report at a time?
I think you can only do one report at a time. But I am happy if, Tara, we could add that to our question list and let me verify.
Absolutely.
Because I wish I had a better answer, but I'm pretty sure, and I want to check before I say no for like 100%.
I'm medium sure. So we have your full sure and my medium sure on that one, but we'll
Okay, then we
definitely look at it further.
We'll check it out.
It'd be great if we were both wrong on that one.
That's one of those times where I'd be happy to be wrong.
I know. Wouldn't it be great if this functionality had secretly been developed and we were both wrong about this one?
Yep.
We're vamping so that people have time to put more questions in chat, but I think we've covered everything that's there. And nothing's come up while I'm talking, so I think we're good.
Well, thank you all for today and your time. Great questions. If you have others, I'm always happy to help. Yeah, the reporting app, The reporting gap within Folio is just a connector with MetaDB, and then MetaDB is where we store all of the goodies, and we run SQL queries, and then you can play with those too. So we didn't get a lot of chance to do that, but it's really powerful and has a lot of tools. And I don't know, like, I think I'm so glad we have it every day when somebody has trouble. So it's pretty awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Meg. That was very kind of you.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank both of you for taking us through this lovely journey through Folio. If anyone's got any questions or if they're interested in potentially implementing Folio, please do contact CAVAL at CAVAL and we'll put you in touch with the Index Data team. If there are any specific areas you would like to see a demo of as well, please let us know. We could set up a separate demo session for you too. Thank you again, and thank you to Corrie and Tara for being up late. Well, yeah, late at night. We do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you all soon. Thanks all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a great day.